Hey, I'm Lou Brutus. Always glad to go to beautiful Charleston, South Carolina, one of my favorite cities in the world, where I am joined by my old friend Ben Bruce from Asking Alexandria. Great to see you. How are you?
I'm wonderful, and you know what? I'm really, really, really wonderful because obviously it's been awful. It's been terrible. Lots of negative stuff. Lots of terrible times for everyone. But for me personally, I've been able to stay home and be with my wife and kids for 2 years, and it's just been a bit of a blessing, honestly. I've been able to just be dad as opposed to Ben Bruce, and I've loved it. And like you said, we relocated to Charleston and fallen in love with this beautiful city. It's incredible. It's good. Things are good.
Let me ask you about the summer times there, because again, you had lived in Arizona before this, where they know a little thing about heat. However, in Charleston, you can often get the heat plus the oppressive humidity, and
Right.
it's like trying to breathe a gym sock. How has this summer been for you so far?
So it's been fine. Humidity doesn't bother me, especially because I grew up in Dubai, so it was always humid there. But
Yeah.
I had obviously become accustomed to the dry heat that Arizona has to offer, and it is hot. Like you're talking 120 degrees in the summer in Arizona. So I came here, and the summers it's been nice. It's been like 88 is the high, so it's been like, oh, this is fine. And the other day, so like I said, I've grown very accustomed to being dad. So I mow my own lawn and everything now, and I do the dad stuff, and I'm outside mowing my lawn, talking to my neighbors, blah, blah, blah. And my wife's like, "You need to come inside. You're like looking kind of pale." And I was like, "I'm fine." And she was like, "No, you need to come inside." And I ignored her. And I was like, let me finish the yard work. By the way, just to let you know too, I didn't opt for the gasoline or electric lawnmower. I was like, who needs one of those? I got one of the old-fashioned ones that just spin. I didn't I didn't realize how much extra work that would be. So that's me mowing my lawn with one of these old-fashioned blades, and I get done, and I just start shaking, and I'm like, how can this be happening? Like, it's not as hot as it is in Arizona. But so I think I gave myself a bit of heat stroke, and I was really quite sick for about 2 hours, and I rehydrated and showered, and my wife made me lie in bed. But I looked into it, and apparently the humidity. So obviously, when you sweat, that's your body's way of cooling you down, and the way it works is it evaporates on your skin, and that keeps your internal organs cool, and you're good to go. You're self-refrigerating. When the air outside is moist, your sweat can't evaporate, and so you're not cooling down. And I didn't know that. And after I'd read it, I was like, "Oh, duh, that makes so much sense." But so the humidity is a thing. The humidity is a killer. It didn't realize till just the other day.
I never knew that myself. So I think we've all learned a little something here
Yeah,
today.
there you go. That you're welcome, Professor Bruce here at your service.
And one more domestic question. I would be curious what your neighbors think of the Dubai raised rock star living amongst them in Charleston. It's got to be a bit of an oddity to folks, a pleasant
They
one.
they love it. It's so funny when we moved into the neighborhood. It's a nice neighborhood, but I just you don't know who your neighbors are going to be. And we've moved into a beautiful neighborhood, beautiful houses, but it's all older people who have retired. And I was like, I wonder why there's no younger people here. And then it was brought to my attention. Obviously, I've been very fortunate in life, and I was able to afford a house for my family that people, tend to work towards their life. And I was like, oh, of course. So we've got all of these older neighbors, and when we move in, and we're covered in tattoos, and there's three children running around, and everyone's like, what do these people do? So one of the neighbors across the street came over, and it's like a movie, just so you know. Everyone came over with like pies and like made homemade food for us, and it's amazing. And everyone's like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm a musician." And I hate saying that because everyone goes, "Oh, oh, okay." And I never ever will be like, "Yeah, I'm quite a famous musician now. I do well for myself." There's no way. So I'm always like, "I'm a musician," and they go, "Oh, okay. What's your band called?" And I'm like, "Oh, Asking Alexandria." And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Asking Alexandria. Don't worry about it. We're not very good." And they all must have gone home and Googled. And after that, yeah, everyone's like, oh, there's a rock star in the neighborhood. And then everyone just starts like, the neighbors across the street started blaring like Motley Crue and like inviting us over. But now we've actually become quite good friends with everyone, because it turns out all of our neighbors are grandparents. And so they have grandchildren about the same age as our children. So everyone's become really quite close. But I think initially it was a bit of a novelty. Everyone was like, ooh. And now they've realized that, you know, I'm outside in my backyard picking up dog crap like the rest of them and mowing my lawn. I don't even have, like we discussed, I don't even have an electric lawnmower. So like this guy's with his manual lawnmower. So it's it was funny.
Yeah, and all the neighbors bringing the food. It gets back to the original thing I believe I said to you when you told me you were relocating to Charleston, and that was they're going to make you fat.
You're gonna gain,
Yeah.
so much weight. I did gain weight when we came here, and I had to lose weight. And I lost quite a lot of weight for our music video shoot and everything. And I've come back to Charleston after filming the music video and the record. And I'm like, oh yeah, Southern food. It's so annoying. The food is so good.
You know, I had to do the same thing. You know, I had, because I had lost 50 something pounds several years ago and kept it off. And then the last year and a half, I put like 15 pounds back on, took most of it back down again for Rockfest, the first big festival I had. And then after that, same thing, came home. I'm like, well, I won't see anybody else for 2 more months.
Yeah,
Where's the donuts? You know?
At some point, you just have to put your happiness first and eat a chocolate bar.
Yeah, you got to bend so you don't break.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
in the middle of the picking up dog crap
Mm-hmm.
and dealing with the neighbors and listening to their music, you get new music done, and there is an excellent song called "Alone Again" that I don't know if this is the proper take on it, but it sounds very much like a back to basics song for you guys. Tell me all about creating it.
I mean, I think that's the perfect way to describe it, because that was literally my mentality. And you know, we've just briefly touched upon how this time off has been quite nice for me, and I've enjoyed connecting with my kids and my wife in a way that I've never been afforded to before. But on the flip side of that too, it allowed me the time to reconnect with myself, just again as me as a human. Like, who is Ben? Like, I've been so caught up in everything for so long, and it made me sit and look around at my guitars that rarely get played for fun anymore, because it's always rehearsals and so I just really sat down and I started reminiscing about what it was that made me fall in love with rock and metal and guitar, and why am I here doing this? And, you know, I started just listening back to all my old favorite records, my Metallica records, AC/DC, Queen, Zeppelin, Nirvana, all these old records that I used to just adore, that made me fall in love with playing guitar and everything. And I was like, man, somewhere along the way, things change. When your hobby becomes your job, it's very easy. People come in at you from all directions and like, do this, you got to do this by this day, and all of a sudden all that stopped, and it was like I was a 12-year-old kid again, picking up my guitar for me. And I was like, what do I want to write? What do I want to do? And the answer was, I want to go back to basics. I want to go back to what it was that made me fall in love with this in the first place. And I remember, like it was yesterday, the first time I ever heard Through the Never. I was in my bedroom in Dubai, and that riff just came on. Did you get it? And I was like, I lost my mind. I was jumping up and down on my bed, and I was like, it just made me feel electric. You know, I was like, this is amazing. And that's what I wanted to do with this album. I was like, man, it's so easy now to just go into a computer program and get a bunch of cool sounds and throw it all together, and here you go, you've got a record. Well, I didn't want to do any of that. And we decided as a band we weren't going to do any of that. So there's no like synths and computer programming on this album. Everything you hear was played by either our hands, or if we couldn't play it, which the only thing that we didn't play is the strings, we had real string players come in and play the strings, because we didn't want to create anything on the computer. But everything else is us, and it's just us. It's the 5 band members just doing what we love doing. We went back to basics, and I think you can hear more passion in this album than any album we've released ever, possibly, but at least since Stand Up and Scream, because it was almost like it was our first album again. And it was exciting. And those guitar tones are real guitar tones. We had like 60 guitars in there, and we had 20 heads that we bought and 100 pedals, and those drum tones weren't replaced with samples. Those drum tones are the tones we captured and we created. And so it was a special album, and it was the first time in about 10 years that we were all in a studio together.